Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to discuss the latest additions to Boris Johnson's tangled web of distractions as he announces that COVID Plan B is to come into effect, or at least a close approximation of Plan B. The government claim this is to deal with the Omicron variant, and although it is absolutely needed to help deal with the Omicron variant, it is really to deal with his latest scandal, and because this is how it is being seen, he is completely undermining the very important public health message. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So before I get on to the public health aspects of Johnson's latest distraction, a couple of side points that are caught up in this tangle of lies first. First of all, you may know that Allegra Stratton has resigned. She is the press secretary who was seen joking in that video that was leaked a couple of days ago. You may have seen her crying as she read out her resignation from outside her home and feel sympathy that she has been scapegoat like this. And she is being made a scapegoat. She's absolutely been made a scapegoat. No one else has been made to resign. There were plenty of other people involved just in that video, never mind the party, and she's the only one who's been made to resign. So absolutely yes. But there are three reasons to feel no sympathy for her. First, if you look at some of the atrocities that she has committed in her career, any sympathy for her is likely to drain away. It certainly has for me. Second, she claimed that her leaked words would haunt her for the rest of her life, words to that effect. This is a lie. She made those remarks a year ago, and she's only claimed to regret them when they were aired in public. She regrets getting caught out. The tears were for herself, not the hurt she's done. Third, finally, the resignation is basically a sham anyway. In the video, a year ago, she was Boris Johnson's press secretary. But she was so bad at it that he had to move her on. She became his COP26 secretary instead, which is a position, of course, he places no importance on, so it didn't matter how incompetent she was. She got these jobs because of her connections. She's married to the editor of the right-wing Spectator, the same Spectator that yesterday ran an article before she resigned saying how, she was being treated so badly and all the rest of it. Quelle surprise. But anyway, the point is that she had a temporary role which was coming to an end in 4 weeks anyway. So she's resigned from a job that was ended in 4 weeks anyway. And it's not even like a month's lost pay because she'll have still had holiday that she was going to use over Christmas. So the second side point is that some people are claiming that all this Christmas party stuff is itself a distraction from the immigration bill that has just passed through the Commons yesterday. This is the one that allows border force officers to try and turn back asylum seekers at sea, further endangering their lives. It's also feared that we're going to follow Australia's lead with this bill and build offshore detention camps, where, of course, the process of processing claims will be predictably slow and tortuous. But none of what has happened this week is distracting from that. Even if there were no scandals occurring, even if there was nothing else for the opposition to parties to talk to, so they decided to use PMQs to talk about the immigration, this immigration bill, the public would not be glued to their seats trying to suck up news on the bill. The media wouldn't even bother reporting on it much. It's a bill that demonises some of the most vulnerable people in the world. The public aren't going to be bothered about that. The British public, bear in mind, aren't even bothered about the policing bill or the online harms bill, which takes away their own rights. What do they care about a bill that takes away someone else's rights if they don't even care about bills that take away their rights? The reason why opposition parties are hammering the Christmas party scandal is not because, they're some Westminster elites and they think this is the worst thing the government have done. It's because the public are interested. Don't blame the politicians, blame the public. If Labour, for example, want to make any impact, the same with any party, it has to be by talking about things that are interesting to people who are willing to listen. These are people who are not generally interested in politics, but they're interested in scandal. This is why Boris Johnson has pushed the panic button with his COVID Plan B. Now it's true that we do need this to deal with COVID. Everything they said in that press conference, as far as I could tell, in terms of the seriousness of Omicron, is absolutely true. It is likely to become the dominant strain before Christmas. Frankly, we needed these measures in place for Delta. We weren't handling Delta. We're having over 1,000 people die a week for months. We've had that. We needed it for Delta, never mind Omicron. I'd mentioned in a previous video that a member of the government's own scientific advice group, SAGE, had reported that if Omicron turns out as we fear, then Plan B wouldn't be nearly enough. Not just that Plan B wouldn't be enough, wouldn't be nearly enough. And we can see this, because bear in mind, this Plan B only applies to England. The rest of the UK have done their own thing. So Scotland, for example, already had what was essentially Plan B in operation throughout the summer and throughout autumn. It's not enough. The rate of infection is rising alarmingly in Scotland as well. Scotland aren't doing enough. We're doing way worse. All parts of the UK need to do more. But this was evident before now. This hasn't just suddenly some news has come out in the last day or two. Another reason why we can be certain that this Plan B announcement is just a distraction, not a coincidence, is because we know it wasn't planned. There was no hint of it on Tuesday. When the government in the past they've announced new measures, we've had a sort of a hint of it a day or two beforehand. It's built up. That's because officials have to draw up the new guidance, which still wasn't done even as Boris Johnson was announcing it to the nation and Sajid Javid was announcing it to MPs in Parliament. And speaking of that announcement, here is another problem with the way this has been done. These measures are necessary. In fact, just as with the last set of measures, it won't change how I behave, for example, one iota, because I have taken my lead from experts, not the government. I was already doing what the new measures require of us. These new measures, it's like, I don't have to do anything different. In fact, I'm still doing more than even these new measures require. The problem is that most members of the public are very keen to adopt necessary measures. We know that. The public support them. But they're also happy to drop them when the government say it's fine to do so. I don't need to do this anymore. The government say it's fine. Now, what if the government aren't believed? What if the public don't believe that the measures are necessary? What if they believe that this is all a distraction? And many people will. I mean, it is. Like a Conservative MP, Philip Davis, Conservative MP, bear in mind, asked the Health Secretary in Parliament why he shouldn't tell his constituents to treat the new rules in exactly the same way as number 10 Downing Street treated last year's rules. Now, a couple of things about that comment. First of all, note, a Tory MP is standing up and treating those parties as if they happened. There's none of this, these parties didn't happen. Conservative MPs accept that these parties happened. Stood up in Parliament and talked about it as if it's fact, because it is fact. Right? But the second thing is, they're basically saying that they're not going to promote the government's line, which will be law, by the way. Parliament will pass this law. It'll be interesting to see how many Tory MPs vote against it, but it will get passed because opposition MPs will vote for it. And it'll be... But this MP is basically saying, I don't think I'm going to promote this in my local area because I think it's a sham. Now, bear in mind, there are already dedicated nutters trying to convince people that COVID measures aren't necessary public health rules, but authoritarian control rules. They're there to coerce the public, according to these people. Such messages were predictably widespread since the announcement, and they were given such ammunition. For example, the new rules mean that you must work from home if able to from next Monday. However, you are still allowed a Christmas party. Now, granted, it would have been an act of the utmost cheek, even for Boris Johnson, to, in the same briefing room where we saw his former press secretary joking about rules-breaking Christmas parties last year, to have said, by the way, you can't have a Christmas party this year either. But saying that you can have a party but not a meeting is just ludicrous. All that's going to happen when people want to have a physical meeting is they'll just take along some cheese and wine. They'll say, we're having a party. We're just having a party where we're going to talk about work things. And voila, within the rules. In fact, why stop there? If you want to go into the office, just take a trifle, some party hats and a bottle of gin into the office with you. And you're not working, apparently you're having a party. Oh, make sure there's some music. And it's things like this that not only prevent the sensible measures from having as much impact as they should, but that lead people to the conclusion that it is in aid of getting people to stop talking about the insulting way that the government ignored their own rules last year. You know, not that it had the intended effect in the media. Like in the newspapers this morning, the Metro reporting that Johnson was playing the public for fools. Okay, that's fine. That they didn't cover him from yesterday. But, you know, the Daily Mail, a Tory newspaper, I remind you, they were plugging the one rules for them, new rules for us. But again, they didn't cover for him yesterday. But there were papers that covered for him yesterday. I talked about it this morning. The Times had a front page headline of a second raucous Tory party. In actual fact, there's been at least three. I think it might even be up to four now that there's decent evidence for. The Telegraph, another paper that covered for him yesterday, had the headlines, "Don't go to work, but do go to parties." Even the Sun had it in for him. And you might imagine what's changed. Several papers that covered for him over the Christmas party yesterday had their knives out for him today. And I'll tell you why. It's because they were happy to cover for his rules breaking. Some of their journalists we know were invited to those parties last year. And we know some of them, well, we have seen reported some of them attended. Until someone leaks the actual list of people who were there, we can't know for certain. But some of them likely attended. But what they don't forgive is him applying COVID restrictions. They don't like that at any time, especially when it's just to cover his own expanding arse. The only newspaper that was still covering from this morning, as far as I could see, was the Express, the paper that can almost always be relied upon to back our clown in chief. Even the BBC News were not covering it in the way that he would like. You know, Tory stooge and chief political editor Laura Kunsberg was asking some damaging questions of the Prime Minister at his press conference yesterday. A lot of people go, "Oh, wow, she doesn't normally do that." And I have to say, it makes me absolutely furious, really, that the only reason many of these media outlets are attacking this, because you could look at it and go, "Oh, the media are attacking him. Oh, yeah, this could be rad for Johnson." The reason they're doing it is not because they're representing the public interest, not because they're not allowing Johnson to distract from the parties, but because they don't like the restrictions. If instead of this plan B, he'd have triggered Article 16 instead, they'd have been fine. They'd have supported him still. So what the media are really doing here is less about attacking Johnson. He's just collateral damage. They are attacking the COVID measures that should never have been dropped as far as they were in the first place. You know, the NHS are looking on in horror at the impending winter calamity, as should we all. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.